Good day, parents. This is Pastor Dave Rhymes, and you're listening to Soundbites, where sound theology and sound advice meets everyday life. This clip comes from the Footnotable podcast, episode 10 of season 2, which is the third and final episode in the series on Gen Z. You can listen to this episode and a 3-part series in its entirety on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. In this soundbite, Pastor Oren and I discuss the importance of not delaying the spiritual growth and development of our children despite the current trend towards slow development into adulthood among Gen Z. So right now you're talking about a shift in parenting that is creating a slower development into adulthood for this particular generation.
Yeah, and this is a discipleship issue, isn't it?
It is a discipleship issue. Yeah, because this is where you can't allow the culture to dictate how you raise your child spiritually. So, let's just be frank. Your child can probably catch up on adulthood, developmentally, maturity-wise, as they get out of your house. It may be a bumpy road, but they can. It's not too late.
Yeah, it's not impossible. Correct.
But when we talk about spirituality and spiritual developments, you don't want your child to be delayed in their spiritual maturity and development. Right. Because let's just reference our episode last week on worldview. Mm-hmm. You don't want to send them into the full-blown version of that worldview.
Yes. Being
spiritual infants. Some of the attention that you may not give towards a child in their adult upbringing. We're like, you don't, look, don't worry about the driver's license just yet. That's fine. Or, so-and-so's not dating. I thought maybe they would. Oh, no worries. We're not going to force the issue on that. When you talk about spiritual development and maturity, you can't go, that's okay. No worries. That's something as parents, we have to be on top of. Mm-hmm. And so whether you get a driver's license at 16 or at 19 doesn't matter in the long run. But whether or not you understand, acknowledge, and submit to the authority of Scripture at a younger age versus an adult matters a lot.
Huge, yes.
Exactly. And so we can't let our kids and grandkids go on the slow grow path for discipleship. We have to be very intentional in the home.
The church in America is feeling the effects of our a lack of expecting our kids to grow up in their spirituality, in their theology, in their doctrine. So now, in the age we're in now, we're seeing the sort of the children of that kind of mid 20th century, late 20th century model where you programmed discipleship, and it became part of the the entertainment industry. We just got to get people in the door. And so what we're seeing now is young people, those young people are now having their own children, and they didn't have the skills when they were young, developed in them, to now disciple the next generation. And so the next generation is growing up with that same kind of spiritual immaturity. And I think you and I would agree that a person's spiritual development is going to affect all those other areas of life, right? Yes. If you're walking with Christ and you understand what that means, it's going to affect your dating relationships, your online relationships, your work ethic, your understanding of the world, worldview. All those things are affected by your spiritual development. And so maturity takes on a completely different meaning for those that have been discipled really well. And that's to go back to where we started with this part of the conversation, it goes back to the parents. It's on them to understand why this is happening and then what we can do to sort of steer this in the right direction.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to caution parents on is understanding the difference between protection and preparation.
Yes.
So we talked about the Gen Z worldview, and there's some of those things that they make your eyes go wide. They kind of make your palms sweat a little bit.
They're
like,
scary.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Sure.
And so we don't want to do is go into full protection mode. Let me wrap this kid in bubble wrap, and stick them in a closet somewhere. And when they're 18, I'll unleash them on the world. And again, this goes back to,
because then they'll be ready.
They'll be ready because they'll be physically, mentally developed. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's not true either. We now know that men and women don't fully develop mentally until they're about 24, 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not ready at 18. And
No.
so we have to learn to teach our kids how to be prepared. Yeah. How do you look at the world around you, ask the right questions, and see things from the biblical perspective the way you need to, so that when you are confronted with some of these things that are scary, you don't go, oh my goodness, this is out of the blue. And then you kind of get bamboozled into thinking something wrong because you fall for a faulty argument. You've seen this before in some form, and you've been taught by your parents in partnership with your local church how to think critically on these things, how to think biblically on these things. And so for the parents, they need tools. They need tools that they can use to disciple their kids. And then as a church, it's on us to provide those tools. And look, it's not easy on either end of this process, because we're all kind of navigating this in the moment. Nobody, we can't call timeout. Timeout. We gotta go figure this out. Parents,
pause for a minute.
Parents, timeout. Life, timeout. Work, timeout. Culture, timeout. Church, timeout. We need to go sit on the bench and drop some plays here, and then we'll throw everybody back in the game. It doesn't work that way. We're just sort of, everything's inaudible, right? And so, parents and the church have to work in concert with their kids and put that focus where it needs to be in the home on preparation, so that they can handle life and a crazy worldview that is far from God without flinching the first time they encounter some of these things outside of the home and when their parents aren't standing there.